Welcome to Luke21 Radio, a broadcast explaining biblical prophecy in the tradition of St. Augustine. And now, from Greenville, South Carolina, here's your host, Steve Wood.
Hello, this is Steve Wood, and welcome to Luke 21 as we study biblical prophecy together. And we're today looking at an extremely interesting passage in Revelation 12 that talks about the great sign in heaven. And let me just read to you the first two verses in Revelation chapter 12. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was with child, and she cried out in her pangs of birth in anguish for delivery. All right, this is pretty important stuff. And for this episode, I want to tell you that I am fully indebted to a book entitled The Great Christ Comet by Colin Nicholl. And Dr. Nicholl earned his PhD in New Testament studies at Cambridge. He subsequently taught at Cambridge and Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, my alma mater. And let me tell you why I ordered his book on the Great Christ Comet, because the title wouldn't have attracted me. But when I saw the author's name, I said, I'm reading that book. And here's why. Those of you who were with me in our podcast on biblical prophecy in Luke 21, we were studying 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And there's something in there that has puzzled people from, all the way back, say, to Augustine said, I'll never figure out what 2 Thessalonians 2 is talking about when it talks about a restrainer holding back the great apostasy coming and such like this. And he said, I don't think we'll ever find out what it is. And I've read all kinds of crazy things about people saying what the restrainer is. But then I ordered an article that appeared in a fairly technical New Testament journal, which I guess later became a book and such. But it was by Dr. Nicholl, and he solved the puzzle of 2 Thessalonians 2 using a very careful study of Daniel, which was widely used in the early church to understand biblical prophecy. And when I saw that, I said, he's got it. And I thought my whole time of my adult life studying Scripture, I never thought I'd see the puzzle solved, and he solved it. And it's very interesting to see that his solving the puzzle of the restrainer in 2 Thessalonians 2 is now spreading through the world of biblical scholars, and it'll be finding its way out to the general public as time goes on. So I got Dr. Nicholl's book on the Great Christ Comet, and I knew it was going to deal with looking at the astronomical phenomena that was described in scriptures regarding the birth of Christ. And with that, you'd get a date or an approximate date of when Christ was born. And I just thought, well, here's another book to add to the pile of those making guesses of when Jesus was born. And I found out, even though this is way out of my league, it was the most informative, scholarly, and groundbreaking book that I have read on any topic in a long time. And there were 4 ingredients, at least, in Dr. Nicholl's book that set him apart from other interpreters trying to figure out the date of the birth of Christ. And here's the beginning, because here we are in Revelation 12. He realized that Matthew 2, which, the wise men saw the star in the east and followed it to Jerusalem and such, a lot of times that's a focus. But he also realized that Revelation 12 is describing the same events surrounding the birth of Christ that Matthew 2 was. They're talking about the same event. So one of the signs that you're on the right track figuring out the date of the birth of Christ is to put Matthew 2 and Revelation 12 together. And then the second thing he did, as a vital ingredient, he took the details of each of those passages extremely seriously and literally. He tried to work it out. And yes, Revelation 12 is using, like most of the book of Revelation, a lot of symbolic language. But if you see there's a great sign appeared in heaven, so what does it mean? A woman like Virgo, clothed with the sun in a certain position, coming through Virgo, the moon underneath or under her feet, 12 stars, and all of this was describing a celestial event. That's what he realized. And then he went and interviewed and got input and corrections from the world's leading experts in orbital mechanics, astronomy. I didn't even know people were still studying this one, cometography. And basically, he is saying that this wasn't just a planetary conjunction. And this is a kind of the usual case made by those trying to predict the date of Christ's birth, saying it was a planetary conjunction. But no, Colin Nicholl, and I'm going to explain to you why, believes it was a long period comet, not a comet that streaks through the sky some night between 1 and 3 a.m. No, this would go on for like 28 days. Now, part of the reason for that, if you just take Revelation 12:1, where it says a great sign, that word great in Greek is mega. You get the idea. Anything is mega is big. It's unusual. And conjunctions aren't entirely unusual. There's major conjunctions every decade, and the rarest of conjunctions become visible, say like once every 20 years. But there's overall nothing particularly unusual about conjunctions, because this says this was some kind of great sign. It was an unusual sign, and that's why they said this was a comet. And the fourth thing that he used, and that all of the orbital mechanics and astronomers and cometographers use today, is computer software. And you can take this software and show up on your screen how the sky will look tonight. And then if you want, you can put any date in history, including the years BC, and see how the sky appeared on that particular night. And there's even home versions of this software that I assume are affordable. I didn't go for it, but I was tempted. And so what you have, according to a senior lecturer in New Testament at Cambridge, Dr. Nicholl's book is the most comprehensive interdisciplinary synthesis of biblical and astronomical data yet produced. And so with all of this, he came up with the great sign in Revelation 12 and Matthew 2. It was the largest and brightest comet to come within Earth's orbit in all of human history. It was literally a great sign, the greatest sign ever to pass over the Earth in recorded history. And there's a Dr. Gary Cronk who has written a 6-volume history of comets for Cambridge University Press. I get a kick out of this every time I read it. Can you imagine? I didn't realize there's such a specific discipline of comets, and you write 6 volumes of history on comets. But this is what he says of the Christ Comet. There has never been in all of history such a dramatic sight. The Christ Comet was the greatest comet in recorded history. That's why the wise men took off. And this comet was visible not only at night, but in broad daylight. It was that bright. And you say, well, Steve, that's nice. That's just the latest book on this. Well, it is the latest book. And in my 2 cents, this is the best book on the subject using the best astronomy and science and biblical interpretation available to us. But also, one of the earliest testimonies of this says the same thing. And I'm going back to a letter to the Ephesians by St. Ignatius that was written as he was being taken as a prisoner to Rome to be fed to the lions in 107 AD. And on his way, St. Ignatius wrote 7 letters And these are some of literally the earliest writings we have out of the Christian church. And I'm going to quote him. Now, the Virgin Mary and her giving birth were hidden from the ruler of this age in the silence of God. How then was he revealed to the ages? A star shone forth in heaven, brighter than all the stars. Its light was indiscernible, and its strangeness caused amazement. All the rest of the constellations, together with the sun and moon, formed a chorus around the star, yet the star far outshone them all, that there was perplexity about the origin of this strange phenomena, which is so unlike the others. And again, that was from 107. And here's your bookends. The earliest testimony from the Christian church regarding the unique greatness of this great sign of the Christ comet. And then you find Dr. Nicholl's book of using the most modern software and cometologists, not climatologists, and astronomers. Just a caution about the book. In the ancient world, there wasn't like a sharp dividing line between astrology and astronomy. And the pagan world didn't have the scriptures, so they used signs in the heaven. This one was authentic. Worshipping through astrology isn't, but some people get all upset that God did this. Well, it says it pretty obviously in Scripture, and he used them to bring the wise men to Jerusalem, and then the Scriptures brought them to Bethlehem. And so here we have Isaiah 9:2, that Scripture which we hear a lot regarding Christmas time. Isaiah 9:2, which is quoted in Matthew chapter 4, it says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light, and those who dwell in a land of deep darkness, on them light has shined." And so Revelation 12, just these two verses are showing that the sun was moving through Virgo, the woman, appearing over her womb with the moon under her feet. This was a sign in the constellations for the pagan world, because the Christ child was for the Jews, but also for all the world. For God so loved the world, and he gave the sign to these pagans so they could come and meet Christ. And Dr. Nicholl makes the point that this comet had originated with the creation of the universe. And it took, centuries and centuries and centuries to make its way on a very specific date and time in human history. It was planned. And physics, the one who made physics, the one who made the comet, was the creator of the universe. And it's a marvel. And I can't give you the date because Dr. Nicholl kind of urges people not just to swing dates around, but to see his case, and he makes, believe me, a very thorough case for it. But I can tell you this, of the brightest celestial phenomena of all time, of all human history, it signaled the birth of the Messiah before dawn on a certain date in 6 BC. And if you buy his book, if you have a hard time finding the date, I'll send you the page number. But until then, I'm Steve Wood, your host, and you've been listening to Biblical Prophecy with Luke 21.
Luke 21 is a radio outreach of Family Life Center International. To learn more about biblical prophecy, visit us online at Luke21.com.